Okay, welcome. Welcome back. Good to see you guys, sort of. This is the first of our summer series of webinars we're going to be doing throughout Bar Prep to hopefully keep you guys on track for both your studies, practice questions, and most importantly, how to use the AdaptiBar program the right way. A lot of people do a lot of work, but we want to make sure you're doing, again, working smartly, efficiently, and effectively. So the practice questions and the other content can really help you improve your scores, fix the problems. And that's really what we're about, not just the quantity of the studying and the prep, but the quality of the prep. So you can build that confidence, which we all know is so important. So in each one of the webinars, I like to acknowledge that among you guys out there are a lot of first-time takers. Congratulations on graduation. And now getting into the sobering up effect of bar prep really beginning, kind of hitting you in the face like, oh, this is what they were talking about. And some repeat takers who've been through this before and want to figure out how can I avoid the same things from happening again. So I try to tailor as best I can a lot of the tips, advice, suggestions that I give studying and practice, both for first-time takers and for repeat takers. Clearly, there are some generic same principles, but there are some differences, so I try to focus on that too. And I also know that some people out there with that in mind are studying first-timers, 8, 10 hours, whatever the hell it is a day, but there's also a lot of people who are working. So we talk a little bit about the difference in schedules, what's manageable, what's not, what's realistic, etc. So again, welcome. We'll try to address everything, be on a cross-reference where everybody is. So hopefully by the end of the webinar, you kind of feel a little differently, maybe tweak what you thought you were going to do, how to use your time, and again, how to use the program more effectively. And then we'll be following up in a couple of weeks, midway through bar prep, and certainly, at the end of bar prep, give you that last little bit of a pep talk, so to speak, how to effectively use the last couple of weeks before the bar. So tonight, intro, big picture. First, for my first time takers, big question always is, how do I use AdaptiBar along with my bar course? Great question. Again, these are macro ideas. Everyone's in a little bit of a different position. Some schools are very specific about what you should be doing. I don't want to contradict anything. These are just broad ideas. And sometimes if you do this, this is the problem. If you do that, that's the problem. And everybody, I believe, I always say this in every class I teach, the bar exam is the most individual exam you'll ever take. So what worked for you last time may not work for you now. What works for your study group member or your best friend may not work for you either. Stay offline, stay off all those blogs and sites. You can look yourself in the mirror. You've been a student long enough. You really know what works for you and you know what doesn't. So I believe if you're taking one of the big box commercial courses, right now, we're talking May, June, until your simulated practice MBE test, what I call midway through bar prep. Do your course practice assignments during the week. Use AdaptiBar as a tool on the weekend. Anyone who's in bar prep now knows. By the time you watch those lectures, study, outline, do the practice they're giving you, that's a full day. You try to sneak in some AdaptiBar 8, 9 o'clock at night, 6 o'clock in the morning before you start. You're doing them, but probably when one eye is closed, glazing, and you're losing that proficiency with the reading comp. Just focus on what your course is telling you to do. Because the number one goal in bar prep now is the learning and memorization and retention of the black letter law. The goal later on in July is to be doing 50 questions on AdaptiBar every day to build up that stamina, concentration, muscle memory of reading, blah, blah. And so you still have time to do your essay writing and MPT and whatever you're doing in your jurisdiction, the balance between the two. Now the goal is learning the rules, the law. I believe first half of bar prep should be 3/4 law, 1/4 practice. So that the second half of bar prep, end of June, all of July, can be tons of practice. Excuse me, a lot of talking today. 2, if you use too many of the AdaptiBar questions now, then you exhaust them, you've seen them before, and when you really want to be practicing efficiently to really prepare for the bar, people complain, hey, I've seen these tort questions already. So you want to kind of milk the course questions you have. And what I recommend is Friday night, Saturday, Sunday. Hey, I did property, I did contract and tort, I did crim law the last Monday and Friday. Any of those subjects you've completed and reviewed, you feel good about. Go on AdaptiBar, do a small set of questions to prove, to confirm to yourself, I know it, I'm reading them the right way, I'm okay. How many, John? 10 to 15, 15 to 20, not 50, 70, or 100. Again, you're going to exhaust the questions. Some subjects, contracts, property, Civ Pro, a lot more law. You may need a full Saturday or a part of a Sunday to review the rules again before you feel comfortable going and doing the questions. There is a school of thought, I don't believe in this. There is a school of thought, practice the questions to learn the law. If that was the case, why are you watching the lectures? That's the problem. So don't overdo questions first. Use the law, the lectures, the videos, the outline books, etc., to feel better about the black letter law. So when you read the question, you feel confident. Hey, I know this rule. Let me see if the guy's guilty or not. Let me see if he's liable or not. If you're reading the question and you're still not sure of the law because it was last week when you did it and you really didn't put the focus or time in the retention, excuse me, you're guessing too much. You're kind of, when you don't know the law, what happens when you read the question? You're kind of emotionally bailing on the question. I don't really know this. And what happens? You peek at the answer choices too quickly. And that's one of my big no-nos, big bugaboos. Because now you're looking to justify something in your head rather than what the facts are really talking about. So again, you do your coursework during the week, and every waking moment you do have at night, in the morning, whenever, should be on that memorization and recitation of law. I believe reciting rules is the quickest, most efficient way for memorization and retention. It also builds a ton of confidence. If you know, if you can speak it, you know it, I don't need my cards, I don't need my outline. You feel 1,000% better. Also, it's good to try to push yourself to remember, because if you can't, or you forget something, or you forget a piece of the rule, at least you know on May 29, 30, 31, June 2nd, what you're forgetting. You don't want to wake up on July 1st and realize you don't know 3 or 4 subjects. That's when real panic sets in. And for my first time takers, middle of June, end of June, your course is going to give you a practice simulated MBE. That's the day on your syllabus you should be circling right now. That's halftime of bar prep. So to get to that day, I got to know as much black letter law as possible. And the only way to get there is to bring more law with you from May into June. And that's from constant repetition. The only way you know what you don't know is by asking yourself, can I say it or not? Some things will stick very quickly. You'll be pleasantly surprised. But most students don't know what they don't know because they're just reading and watching, or, respectfully, doing too many questions too early in the process. There is time to do thousands of questions later. Do some now, make sure you know the law. So if you're following your course Monday to Friday, and I'm overly redundantly reciting these rules, so when Saturday or Sunday morning comes, hey, this is as good as I could know this stuff. I feel confident now I can get on AdaptiBar and do these. Great. Some subjects, some weeks, you'll feel that Friday night or Saturday morning. And some weeks it'll take you till Sunday. I think I need to do that review first before I feel confident. Good. Not every subject is the same. And everybody had a different experience with property or tort or crim law in law school. Be honest with yourself. Repeat taker. I'm not doing a course, John. I got my outlines. I'll say to you, and also it applies to many first-time takers. Pick one outline, one document, one set of cards. Don't read the same rule 5 times. There's a lot of stuff you can get out there. Don't accumulate stuff. Many repeat takers don't have one box of books, they have 2 or 3. And they're constantly going back and forth with too many source material. The good and bad news is everyone says something just a little differently. And when you hear a different word, a different tone, you write it down, and now you're making your outlines even bigger and bigger. And what's the problem with that? You're missing the one most important thing for every MBE question, which is the rule, the definition, the elements. That is the critical #1 thing that every question is testing you on. So if you have too much stuff, too much fluff, too much filler in your head, you're not focusing on the black letter. So pick one, the most concise version of whatever document outline you like. Get those rules down first. Then you can begin small numbers of questions. Again, most people, a major generalization here, most people who didn't pass the MBE don't have enough of those black letter buzzwordy definitions at the tip of their tongue and organized in their head. And what I mean by organized is you're kind of mushing everything together, because whether it was a 100-page outline from a course, whether it was 3 or 4 different handmade outlines you made as a compilation of many other source material, there's always the examples, the explanations, they said, he said, blah, blah, and you're missing too many of the rules. What's the difference between II and NIED? Trespass to chattel conversion, larceny by trick, false pretenses, character impeachment, equal protection due process. Everyone knows pieces of these things, but do you have this rule and that rule separate, clean, sharp, and fresh? That will improve your MBE score immediately just from not confusing one versus the other. What do I say all the time? One of the main reasons why everyone gets it down to 2, the reason the other answer looks good is because it has a word or a phrase you remember. You just can't remember which tort, which crime it goes with. That's the problem. Fix the law first, then you focus on the question. So get a subject down and don't just fly through the outline. Okay, I'm done. Let's go, John. Make sure and prove to yourself, not to me, not to your mom, hey, I know these rules better. Then you start to practice some questions. Early now in bar prep should be more law, small amounts of practice, and then move forward. For those of you that have used AdaptiBar before, sure, you may see familiar questions you remember. We'll talk about that for a quick second. Because even my first time people, by July, you will see some questions you've seen before, quote unquote. Remember, you don't want to pad your stats. What I mean by that is, which is why you don't want to exhaust too many questions now. Because then people email me in July, hey, John, I did a 50 question set. I'm at 92%, 88%. That's not real. That just means you're memorizing hypos. But the ones on the bar are not going to be the same exact fact patterns as the ones you're doing on AdaptiBar. They know you're trying to do that. You'll see familiar issues you'll see over and over again. Familiar stories, familiar fact patterns, sure, but that's their genius. They can just tweak fact patterns ever so slightly. What do I also say every day? They can't change the law on you, but they will change the facts. So if you're too I've seen that it's A, I've seen that it's B, you're basically getting them right because you remember the answer, but it doesn't mean you can translate any real skill onto the day of the test. When you see a question that you recognize, one of two things. Either you say, I remember this one, it's A. Or I remember this one, it's A, but I picked C. I remember I got this one wrong. Either way, why did you get it wrong? Do you see now with better law memorization and better reading comprehension, slowing down a little bit, etc., more careful? Do you see why you screwed it up? Do you see why the answer is A? If you got it right, do you remember why A is correct? Did you just guess last time? I got it down to 2, you made a lucky guess. Always be asking why. Even if you remember the hypo, as long as now you remember the why you got it wrong and why the other answers are wrong, why it's correct, etc., that's great bar prep. If you're struggling with any of the reading comp part of it, consistently getting it down to 2, maybe fell into that habit of just doing a lot of questions for the sake of doing the questions, at the risk of sounding like a used car salesman, but that's why you're here. Yes, I do recommend the video on the video page, the standalone video called Mastering the MBE. That's me for about an hour and a half, really diving in great detail to the common mistakes you're making when you're reading the questions, why people do get it down to 2, why they second guess, why they overthink, should you read the call of the question, what happens if you do, all of that stuff. And more specifically, how easy it should be to see why A is the correct answer and why the others are wrong. So if you feel like, hey, John, I know all the law, I'm just doing questions and I can't get my percentage up, then it's the reading comp problem. Maybe you want to consider that Mastering the MBE video. Or, respectfully, you saw it already. Okay, did you take notes? Are you applying the strategy and tactics that I'm talking about on every question? Or did you just watch it and say, okay, let me go do 20 or 30? Too many people are focusing on how many they're doing, not am I reading each one correctly. It's all about now quality and slowing down. So in July, then you will do more. That's what they call muscle memory. When you learned how to drive, You didn't go 80 on the express lane right away. You went slow. You got the eye, hand, leg, feet technique, coordination all worked out. Now nobody even thinks about where they're going. You play an instrument. All these examples are the same. You focus on the fundamentals first slowly, then you go do and take the test. Don't worry about, no one should be taking practice tests now. I want to simulate the bar now. It's May, for God's sakes. No one's simulating anything. Simulate that you know more law, and then prove to yourself you're reading the questions better slowly at this stage for now. So if you're doing your course till you get to that MB simulated day, do the coursework during the week, then do additional AdaptiBar on the weekend. When we meet again, then I can tell you how to wean off of that and use AdaptiBar daily on the back end of bar prep. When you're doing AdaptiBar questions, and I think the explanations are the best written explanations of all the programs that are out there. Obviously, I'm biased, and though I didn't write them, I'm not smart enough to write them. That's way above my pay grade. But what I will say about that, another mistake all students make, first timer, repeat taker, etc., is sometimes when you get the question wrong, you read too much of the details of the explanation. Let's talk about that for a second. I'm the one promoting keep your outline lean and mean, black letter law. If you need an explanation here or there to write down so it'll help you remember the rule, of course you should do that. But remember, don't write 4 examples of the rule on your card or in your outline, because the questions you're doing on AdaptiBar are just other examples, different fact patterns. So too many people are trying to memorize this the way it looks here, but then it looks differently on the next question. Next, if you miss a question, in the first 2 sentences of the explanation of the correct answer, it beautifully states the rule. Be honest with yourself. If you picked A, but the answer was B, and you say, oh, I can't believe it, needed physical harm, oh, there was no intent, I forgot about intent, compelling, oh, I screwed that up, I thought it was rational, I mixed up the scrutinies. Those are rule problems, law problems, forgot definitions, confused buzzwords. Okay, have a pad next to you, write down the names of the rules you're forgetting. After your set is over, you go back and you shove those rules back in your head. Don't be doing more questions right away. Fix the law problem. Write them down if you need to, review your notes, walk around the house and repeat over and over again. That'll fix the law problem. But if you picked A, but the answer was B, and you realize, oh my God, I was picking an answer about strict liability. This was a product liability question. I picked equal protection. It was due process. I picked he was guilty. He wasn't guilty. There was no intent. That's a reading comp problem. Point being, the rest of all those explanations aren't going to talk about that much. You don't need to read 18 lines of explanations. You need to get your eye and focus back up on the facts and see what you missed, what you read too fast, what you didn't pay attention to. Maybe you saw the right issue, but you let the language of the other answer get in your head. That's the reading problem. So focus more on flagging, starring those questions and really studying those questions. And what I recommend during bar prep now is Friday night, Saturday morning, Sunday morning, if you're working during the week, focus more on your review of the law and less practice during the week so you have time on the weekend for more of what I'm about to say. Go find those saved or missed questions from the last 5-6 days and sit on your couch nice and comfortable and really study them. What are you doing when you're making these mistakes? Are you reading too fast? Are you not spotting the issue? Are you spotting the issue, but again, you're allowing the language and the answer to get in your head? If you don't really study and make those words appear, like burn a hole in your head, now I see what I'm doing. If you're just, oh yeah, well, those were stupid mistakes, John, I'll just do better next week. You're not going to do better next week. That's the problem, because you're kind of sweeping the problem under the rug. Address the problem and really study those mistakes. Because once you do and you really see it, you say, oh my gosh, this is stupid. I'm just giving this away. He's right. I have to slow down. I have to be more careful. I have to contrast the differences in what each answer is about. Now, on next Monday, when I do my new set of questions, now I can be more aware, more focused, more present, more concentrating on what my problems were. If you don't really see why, you're just doomed to making the same mistakes. That's why so many people who are doing hundreds or thousands of questions, their number never changes much. So again, big picture, early on in bar prep, during the week, use your course. If you're working, you're a repeat taker, focus on more of the law study, because also if you're working and you're a repeat taker, we both know you come home after a long day, life, stress, traffic, family, obligation, whatever. You sit down at 8 or 9 o'clock at night, you're fried. You try to shove in too many questions too late at night, you're going to get them wrong just because you can't see straight. It's not fair to yourself. Focus more on the law retention. Make sure you know the law better and do fewer questions, 5 to 7, 7 to 8, whatever it is. As soon as you feel one eye closing and you're glazing out, stop. Review a couple of mistakes, go to sleep, wake up tomorrow. If doing a particular number guaranteed passing, I wouldn't be here now. You all would have passed. So there isn't some fictitious number now. If you've already done this once or twice or more, you've seen all the questions. It's not a question of how many you're doing. You need to get more correct. That's the problem. So don't put the pressure on yourself. I have to do X number. No, focus on getting more correct. So again, at the beginning of bar prep, use your bar course, let them go through the material, and you focus on that law retention and use AdaptiBar on the weekend. If you're a repeat taker, fine, I'm doing my own thing. Give yourself a couple of days with the law before you just jump in and practice questions. Next, again, we're talking now, first couple of weeks of bar prep, whoever you are. Don't obsess about your stats. This is the other thing, okay? Eventually the numbers matter. No kidding, of course. I'm not an idiot. I agree with you. Right now, if you're taking your first time taker, we just did the foundation, we did the review, the diagnostic. It doesn't matter what the number is, okay? Because many of you haven't looked at this stuff in 2.5 years. Never learned the rules 2.5 years ago. The professor was doing all the theory. So where you are right now has no meaning whatsoever to passing the bar. And if you got 90% on your tort practice review test, that doesn't mean you know tort. It means you could have guessed right on a couple of questions, so the number looks good. You got 45 or 50% in property. That doesn't mean you stink at property. It just means you didn't know the rules, or you forgot them, or you just hate it. Doesn't matter. What you do with those initial practice questions is, again, what I said. Why did I miss them? Which are the rule problems? Which are the reading comp problems? I call them the two piles. You have a pile of questions that you missed because you forgot the law. Okay, I go back, put those rules. The other ones are the reading comp. So people, I always joke, they ride this emotional roller coaster during bar prep based on, I'm a genius, I'm an idiot. 52%, 72%. How you doing today? 65%. How you doing today? 52%, man. It's a whole, you're like identified by the number. It'll go up and down, especially depending on the subject. I also say the subject's not a linear situation. So I know many first-time takers, you guys feel like if I study 8, 10, 12 hours a day and I put in the work, I should be scoring well. The bar doesn't let that happen. It's just not the same thing as school a lot of times. Contracts is a great example. You could know a lot of those rules very well, but not see it in a question, because you could recite the rules for third party or parole evidence and just not recognize what a third party question or parole evidence looks like right away. So in some of these subjects, you need to see the 5th, the 8th, the 15th example of what it looks like, why I talk so much about issue spotting. Oh, now I see. Now I see it. Yeah, he's right. It didn't look like the rule. I just need to see it. You do a larceny question, you do a battery question, it's more black and white. It's easier to see, the facts are easier to read, it's right there kind of in front of you. You know what I'm saying? So when your number is lower in con law, contracts, property, it's not necessarily because you don't know the material. How do you know if you know the material? If you can speak it, then you know it. But if you're just kind of working your way through the rust of what some of this looks like, that's why, again, I say it's much more critical to review the mistakes so you could say, oh, now I see he was a intended third-party beneficiary, but they're trying to tell me in that second paragraph his rights didn't vest. Okay, now I know what the rights vesting thing looks like. Oh, I thought it was a complete integration, but they're basically not telling me. So there wasn't one. I see now. In evidence, yeah, that unavailability thing. I think if they don't talk about him, he must have been dead. But that's because I'm an idiot. God, if they don't tell me he's unavailable, then he's not unavailable. If you can learn what you missed from those mistakes, then on that second, third, fifth, 15th example, that's where the improvement. I know on AdaptiBar, they break down, sets of 350 questions, how your progress is. That's why, again, you want to peak in July. Now I've learned through my reading mistakes. I feel better with the law. So each quarter, I can feel that improvement. It's not a race to how fast you can get to 2,000 questions. The number will eventually, God willing, kind of balance out later on. We'll talk about where you should be later. Who cares? It's still May. All I'm saying is if you're high, you can't pass or fail the bar in May based on your stats. The only way you can fail the bar now, in my opinion, or put yourself at risk, God forbid, of failing, is by being overly obsessed with just doing tons of questions as if by osmosis good things are going to happen. The AdaptiBar program and any practice questions you're doing, but specifically AdaptiBar, the licensed real questions, should not be done just to try to have some photographic memory and memorize 1,900 questions and change. They know people do that. The rules that are being tested are the same. The way they use the wording, everything is structured. You'll recognize what they're trying to do to you, but it really comes down to your underlying knowledge of those black letter buzzwords and the reading comprehension. The earlier you feel better with those rules, then in July, when we meet during July, we talk about how many practice questions to do. So again, for now, don't obsess over the stats. Just be asking about the why. And once you begin to see those repetitive nature of the parole evidence, impeachment, equal protection questions, that's where the numbers slowly rise because you're not making a lot of those silly mistakes. Good? Again, also, big picture bar prep as far as practicing and studying. Don't burn out early. First time taker, okay? You came off the family graduation dinner, rah, rah, hoo, hoo, you emotionally blackmailed them for all the presents, right? Your parents said, he's a genius, she's a genius. Oh, they're going to crush the bar. He. Listen to me. We can talk, okay? We can talk. It's wonderful to have unconditional support from family, friends, significant others, etc. Of course it is. It's a blessing. It really is. But they don't know what this is. They say bar exam, they think final exam that you took in school. We can be honest now. You basically BS'd your way through a lot of those finals, right? You got the outline, you skimmed it, you wrote it, whatever you did, you BS for 4, 5, 8 pages, and you got your C plus or your B plus. Congratulations. I'm not criticizing it. Great. But this isn't that. And that's why I talk about an MBE. On your final exam law school model is I could know one thing sort of at a time, and I know what's coming. Now I'm basically taking 7 final exams, closed books simultaneously. No one ever asked you to do that before. So my point is, after you sober up from all the family he patronizing, cheering, real confidence comes from inside. Some people take that momentum from graduation and they try to do too much in the first 2 weeks. They're too pumped up. Let's go, let's crush. I'm not taking any chances, John. One of the cliches that I do believe in bar prep, I'm a proud contrarian about a lot of things about the bar, but one of the things I agree with is this is a marathon, not a sprint. So you do have to kind of pace yourself, which is why I say don't get drunk with questions Monday to Friday by doing 50 or 80 a night on top of what your course is telling you to do. Or don't come home from a long day of work and blow off the rules, but just try to do 50 a day and 100 on Saturday. Nothing good's going to happen. And it's a long way to July. So pace yourself. Fewer now, more later. Physically, emotionally. Some of you are morning or evening people. Some of you need the Saturday morning or the Sunday morning, take a break. Of course you should. Yes, absolutely. Don't have to wear the same sweatpants in the house. They'll be walking around by themselves in a couple of weeks. Don't be eating the same cold pizza for the 4th day. All those things are I got my way through it, John. There'll be long days. There'll be days where you'll be up to 11, 12, 1 o'clock in the morning. Yes, but I'm in the convention center every 6 months in Florida. I see the faces of the people that go up the escalator. I see the faces of the people that come down the escalator. And you want to feel as fresh and ready to take the test. Too many people have already peaked on July 4th weekend and are basically just out of gas. So just keep in mind, it's still a long way to go. There's a lot of material. There's a lot of questions. So focus on that stamina moving forward by physically, emotionally, psychologically taking care of yourself. Very, very important. Also, keep those outlines. As I started to say earlier, reinforce the point, keep the outlines as concise as possible. Don't add 4 different source material. Don't add too much of the examples from the explanations. The rule is the rule. Okay? Yes, as some of you know, I have lectures on AdaptiBar. If you're a first-time taker and you're doing your bar course, I'm here to make money. I'm a capitalist. I can say it. But don't be watching your course and mine on the same day. Don't do that. You'll burn out and you're hearing a lot of the same thing twice. I'm not being a martyr. I'm trying to help you pass the bar. Okay? What I'm also saying is if you're doing evidence, if you did contracts and you still don't understand formation or parole evidence or third-party beneficiary and assignment, you also see that many of the videos are broken down on AdaptiBar by subtopic. So first-time taker already watching a lot of video anyway and says, I think I'm pretty good with tort, but I stink at product liability. I think I'm pretty good with evidence, but I stink at hearsay. My approach is off. You could then potentially supplement just the hearsay video, just the product liability video with me, and now you understand the whole thing. You follow? If you understand intentional tort, then there's no reason to run to watch me say the same thing that your lecture already said it. You want to be efficient with your time. You with me? So use the material you have. You're a repeat taker. You've got 14 versions of the same thing. You can't make up your mind what's important and what's not. You're burnt out. You're sick of looking at your own stuff. And you feel like, hey, John, I'm here today because I heard about AdaptiBar. My friends recommended that. I'm doing the questions. I love the questions, but I don't know the law well enough. My material's all over the place. Yes, then if you need a fresh, different approach to the material, then my lecture video could come in. So again, I don't want to be a used car salesman, but I also want to help you. So if you're a first-time taker, you assume your course is going to give you everything that you need. And then when and if there are little gaps here or there in that material, that's where we can help. You with me? But again, even if you know the law well, but you're having trouble reading and getting a score high enough and not feel confident, that's where the Mastering the MBE standalone video, I think, can help anybody, whether you know the law or not, because that's really, really going to target those reading comp issues. So, big picture. It's a long way to July. Over-focus the black letter law early. What's the best way to prove that you're getting the law in your head? Recitation. You work, driving to work, driving home, taking the train or the bus, walking, whatever you do. Don't listen to lectures, you speak. Okay? I know there's, again, a school of thought that says, I just like to put the lecture in the car, John, I can listen to it. Okay, the problem, and you may be the exception, okay? I'm totally trying to be transparent. Most people, when that happens, what do they hear? Whether it's me or anybody else. My name is Professor Smith. We're going to talk about contracts today. A contract is an agreement between 2 or more people. After the intro, you don't remember anything when you get to your destination. Okay, so what was the point? I'd rather you put the music on low and you be the professor and you recite the rules that you know. When you can't, now you realize what you don't know. Now, when you get to the office or get back home, you'll make a note and now you know what you need to review. Now you're fixing the problem. Otherwise, you're just watching and listening the same thing over and over again. To my friends that I'm humbly appreciate everything. For my repeat takers who've watched the videos already, I get a lot of messages saying, John, I spend more time with you than I do with my spouse. Haha. I spend more time with you than my family. I listen to you all day wherever I am. Again, I'm humble. I humbly appreciate it very, very much more than you know. But enough of me. Okay. How about a little bit of you? All right. You ask Mrs. John, she'll tell you. There's always more than enough John. Okay. We need more you. You be the genius. Okay. So if you listen and you understand what I say, the issue is, can you teach it to somebody? Because you don't want to just be watching the same thing over and over again. There's no retention. You forget, it's a couple of weeks, you're getting a little rusty on it, you want to put something back on to get it back in, fine. Just like people who have the flashcards or your outline. I like to carry the ring of cards around me, John. That's why I make a ring, I buy the office, I have a ring of cards. Everywhere I go, John, I read my cards. I get it, but remember, the cards are only a function to get the rule in your head. Once it's in there, it has to stay there. And you can't read 700 cards over and over again every day because you'll drive yourself crazy. And it's almost like you're just playing a game of whack-a-mole because today I remember the definition, but tomorrow I don't. And when I fix that, then I go back to this. More repetition and recitation. So whatever subject you guys reviewed last week in bar prep or on your own, The goal is not how well you did on the questions that day. The goal is today or next Monday, how well do you remember the law from last week? Because as many of you first-time takers are realizing, one subject is not a big deal. 2, 3, oh my God, 4. When you get to subject number 4, how much of number 1 are you actually going to remember? That's the problem. So you want to feel like you know and carry more law with you rather than just watching the same thing over and over again. It feels good, but when you wake up and take that simulated practice test in the middle of June and you realize half of the material you've forgotten, then that's the big problem. Bring more law with you so when you take that practice test, you're feeling more prepared. Repeat taker, even if you're doing fewer questions during the week, who cares? You want to get more questions correct. Usually it starts with bringing more law with you, and then you can focus more on your reading comprehension. It's all about the quality more than the quantity at this stage of bar prep. With me? A lot of people also like to ask me, even though I talk about MBE, what about when they assign me essays during bar prep, John? Or I'm a repeat taker, I'm taking the whole thing. When do I do that? Again, this is just macro, big picture. I'm not here to be anybody's boss. I recommend you practice the essays as they're assigned to you by your course, even if you need to do them open book, so you get the muscle memory of putting your fingers on the keyboard. You with me? Because essay writing is just like MBE in that there's the rule and the application. On MBE, it's the reading. On the essay, it's the writing. The black letter law is the same for both, meaning I need to know as much of that as I can. In most jurisdictions out there, many of the rules for that you're going to be tested on an MEE essay is similar, exact same thing as it is for MBE. So that's why it's 2 for 1. That's why you want to push more of the memorization now, so you are more empowered and confident to practice. You know that AdaptiBar now has the essay writing program. So if you feel you know a lot of law, but I'm nervous what to do when I get in front of my laptop, I'm a little disorganized, the program could then help you with the application. So again, using AdaptiBar to make you a better test taker, not to replace law school or to replace the entire course that you're doing. Make it effective. We can help with the application and the practice and the efficiency. You need to help us with more foundational rules and law, so you can feel more confident when you get on the computer and or when you're doing the practice questions. Use our program the way it was meant to be used to practice taking the test. It's May. You're not taking the bar yet. That's a couple of months. You want to get into that position where you're really, really just sharpening up those test taking skills. Now you want to focus more on the law. Okay? So big picture, where are we at? Maybe I was doing too many questions too quick. Maybe I was skimming the outline saying, yeah, I reviewed it, I know it, let me jump into the questions. Maybe that's why my number's not going well. One day I'm at 72, John, the next day I'm at 53. That's because you don't know enough law. And the 72% day is you guessed right on a few questions, you remembered a few questions if you're a repeat taker, or those are questions based on rules you just happen to know. But the 52% are rules you didn't know. Okay, fix that, and now you're in the mid-60s every single day. In a couple days, you will be in the 70s. Use the time now for more of that foundational law, building good study habits. When you're watching your lecture, what should you be extracting from that lecture? The rules. You know that's why the outlines are so long. That's why the videos are so long. Because the professors, the lectures are giving you all the explanations and examples of everything. That's not on its face bad. You don't need that for every single rule. Don't write it down. What's my joke that my students know? Don't be a stenographer. Don't write every word down. You're trying to extract the black letter. The less you're putting on the page, the less your cards say, the less you need to memorize. Black letter buzzwords. When you need a little example, so again, you'll remember what it means, totally fine. Of course you should do that. But you know what I'm saying. Don't just highlight, when it's in law school, I always make fun of the law students that get rid of their casebook and the whole book is yellow. They really didn't appreciate the value of highlighting, right? Highlighting was highlighting a sentence or two to show you what's important. But many of you just like to have it as a coloring book. You highlight the whole page yellow. You think everything is important. It's not. So again, focus on making your cards lean. If you have cards as a repeat taker, maybe they're too wordy. Do your best to just be focusing on the retention of the buzzwords. Less you put in, less you're having to keep there. So when you practice your questions, you're more focused, you're more efficient. During the week, Do your coursework now, leave AdaptiBar for the weekend. You're not doing a course, you've done this before, fine. Just prove to yourself that you really do know the law better before you jump into the questions. Do fewer during the week so you don't have that pressure of 8, 9 o'clock at night being exhausted. And I would leave more practice for the weekend with the review. Every Friday to Sunday, the goal should be, whoever you are, to get to Monday morning feeling like you're bringing more of the law forward with you. Some part of every weekend, or for my repeat takers, or the first time takers, 9 o'clock at night. I finished what they told me to do. I still feel pretty good. I can do a little more, John. Always be reciting those rules and or reviewing the mistakes. You're too tired at the end of a long day from work. You did a good review. You feel better with the law. I just can't get online right now and do questions. I'm falling asleep. Don't push. If you're still looking to do something, you can always really study those missed questions, the reading comp mistakes. Certainly, I would say find a Friday night, a Saturday morning, or a Sunday morning for a half an hour a week, every one of those weekends, and say, I'm just going to sit here and really study those hypos. I'll give you a preview. In July, right before the test, when people say, what should I do the night before the test, John? Should I read my outline? No, I'm going to tell you. Hey, one of the things I recommend to people the night before the MBE or the morning before you leave the hotel or wherever you are to go physically to the testing center, the convention center on an MBE day, I say before you get there is have 10, 15, 20 of the silliest, stupidest reading mistakes that you made throughout bar prep and sit on your couch or the hotel bed and study those. The last message you're going to send to your brain before you walk in and take the test, that this is a reading test, not a law test. You'll have enough law in your head. If you don't, you shouldn't be taking the exam. But the law is not the problem. Whatever law you have, you have. You're not going to shove more in there 24 hours or 4 hours or 1 hour before the test. But you can always tell your brain, slow down. Be more careful with my reading. Don't miss those words. I see those key phrases. So every weekend, the more you put that in your head, the last message will be in your head, will be more focused on your reading, and then you know the law, and you reduce the silly reading mistakes. Ultimately, when many of you now from the next time I see you in a couple of weeks, you should make your goal, if you will. I'm going to know more law than I do now. Not raw information, but I'm going to feel more confident. I'm carrying around more definitions. I always like to joke, every 3L in America, has that cocky, arrogant walk, that little strut around campus, the battery on their shoulder. I know more law than everybody in my family. I'm a law graduate. I graduate, throw the thing. My family took me out for the debt, blah, 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 blah. You mock the 1Ls are so idealistic around campus. You know what I'm talking about. A week or two into your course, you're an insecure 1L all over again, right? I just want to pass. I don't know what I'm doing. It's so much, John. This is what happens. It's all normal. That's why we're here today. To say, wait a minute, wake up, take a breath. Everything's okay. Let's get back to basics. Focus on black letter. Practice when you can. Practice for AdaptiBar weekend, repeat taker, less during the week, a little more on the weekend. Lastly, I'll also say, as far as taking care of yourself, you're doing practice questions. You get to question 8, 10, 12, whatever the number is. You realize you're glazing out. You realize you're doing this. You realize you're doing this. You're thinking too much. Pause the program, go to the kitchen, get a drink, splash some water on your face. You want to practice realizing, telling your brain when you're kind of losing it a little. Anyone who's taken the exam knows, hey, you can get the question, you can be great on question until 30, 40, 60, or 70, even 80. But you get sloppy in those last 20, the last 10, the back half of the afternoon. Hey, people don't pass by 1, 2, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10 points. It's not because they didn't study enough, not because they didn't do enough hard work. It's because maybe I'm losing it a little. So as you begin to do more questions, more subjects, figure out maybe in your own head, do I start off really well every day and then peter out? Does it take me a couple of questions to kind of warm up before I get cooking? Maybe I'm reading too quick in the morning. I need to slow down a little bit, kind of pace myself. You follow what I'm saying? Be aware. I know it's very addictive when you get on AdaptiBar and there's that little nauseous moment for like that millisecond when you click the button, please be green, please, oh, red, oh, and you have that again, that emotional roller coaster, okay? So sometimes it's addictive to do more. to do more. Let me do it again. Let me do it again. Let me do another one. Let me do another one. That's later. Right now, why? Why was it red? Why was it green? If you can force yourself in terms of, is it the rule of the reading? B, am I going too fast in the morning, worse at night? Am I just starting every practice set too quickly? And then you know what I'm talking about. What's going on up here day to day to day? The more analytical and diagnostic, if you will, with yourself, the easier it is to take that step back and realize, okay, now I see what I'm doing wrong. Okay, now I know how to fix it. Be more honest with yourself, not just a ball and chain at the desk. It's not about just, I checked the box from my course. I did what they told me to do. Yes, you have to do the work. Yes, you want to complete 80, 90% of the course. Repeat taker. Yes, you want to know the law, but you want to do so many questions. But ultimately, for all of you, why are you here? You're trying to get a couple of more questions correct. That's ultimately the Scantron only picks up the correct answers. So be more analytical now. So in July, when you fixed whatever these mistakes are, these issues are, you've built in better good study habits. So in July, all of you could be doing 35, 40, 50 questions a day. And now you're practicing taking the test using AdaptiBar the way it was meant to be done, with test conditions, timed, one question after the other, blah, blah, blah. You with me? That's why we're with you the whole way. So try to apply some of these tips. I hope they helped with how to maybe tweak or implement better practical day-to-day habits that you're focusing on now in May, June. Get to that MBE simulated exam. If I'm a repeat taker, I'm sorry, one last thing. If you're a repeat taker and you're not following a course, not taking a simulated, your equivalent would be just do what we're talking about now, meaning fewer questions, more law, until you finish all your review of all 7 subjects. That would be my recommendation. Okay. Then once you've completed all the subject, we'll be back in touch with you via this by the time that's going to happen anyway. If not, if you're moving faster, hey, then you've done all 7 subjects. Then you want to try a small mixed set. You just jumble all the questions together and you're doing 15, 20, 25, 30. In other words, building the number up. That's fine too. But if you're not doing a course, so there's no official practice test scheduled, I'm talking about until you've covered all 7 subjects. Focus on more law retention now, fewer questions so that you're peaking later on. Okay? Practical day to day, take care of yourself. It is the quality, not the quantity now. It'll be the quantity later, but right now, build those good habits. First with black letter law, use the practice questions to see why you made those mistakes so you won't make many of those same mistakes in July. Thanks for chiming in here. Hope it helped. We will be in touch with you all summer, and we'll look forward to seeing you again on the next webinar. As always, when you know what you're doing and you know the correct answer, what do? Shut up and pick it. The key to life. Have a great evening and a good week, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks. Take care.